Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It is day 2 of our environment unit, and we're kind of focusing on this one particular area in Italy, in the Tuscan region. The Tuscan region is beautiful. If you get a chance to go, go. And I must say, even though I don't like hot weather, it was okay in the summer. It's doable. But if you can go in the winter, it's even better. But this area that we're focusing on is a beach that has been damaged and polluted by a factory that's nearby. We learned that the factories or the business is Solvay, and the area is Rosignano Solvay. And this factory, yes, the company has brought in a lot of business, Tom, but it's also had a harmful impact.
Right, so of course lots of people enjoy the beach there. They're playing beach volleyball and stuff like that. But this beach is white because of those chemicals in the water. But unfortunately, those chemicals, which are used to produce soda ash, contain a lot of mercury. And the mercury has accumulated over many, many years. And, of course, it has made the local seabed barren of life. It covers that sea grass, and therefore it cannot receive sunlight. So it, of course, has an effect on the ecosystem there. So what are we going to do about it? Well, let's continue talking about it in today's lesson. Let's listen to the entire article for today, and then we'll come right back to break it down for you.
Despite its environmental impact, the factory has also brought considerable benefits, serving as the economic backbone for Rosignano Solvay since its establishment in 1912. Solvay's investment led to the town's development, with tangible benefits such as a hospital, a theater, and housing for employees, all of which symbolize the company's profound influence on the town. A clear proof of this close relationship is the local primary school, named after Solvay's founder, Ernest Solvay. Additionally, from an environmental perspective, the factory claims that its limestone-rich wastewater aids in preventing coastal erosion, a critical issue for seaside towns. However, the potential health implications of the factory's operations are a subject of ongoing debate. Questions loom over whether heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and arsenic in the waste pose a significant threat to the health of locals and tourists alike. A 2017 study shows an increase in mortality rates from several major chronic diseases, including Alzheimer's, among the local population. While scientists speculate that these pollutants may contribute to the heightened disease mortality, the absence of a definitive study, one that's been delayed because of the local government's postponement of necessary funding, leaves this hypothesis unconfirmed, fueling locals' fears of living in a harmful environment. The tale of Rosignano Solvay illuminates the complex interplay between industrial development and environmental conservation. It underlines the urgency for business to honor their social responsibilities and actively seek balance. To protect communities living under the shadow of industry, it is imperative for firms to prioritize sustainable practices and technologies. The mission goes beyond preserving natural beauty. It's about securing the health and well-being of those who call this place home.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson. Again, we're unveiling the pollution behind Italy's scenic coast. We've got some toxic sand there, some poisonous sand, some sand that has some things in it that are bad for your body, so don't go near it. And we begin today by saying, despite its environmental impact, even though we have this environmental impact, the factory has also brought considerable benefits, serving as the economic backbone for Rosignano Solvay since its establishment in the year 1912. So yes, indeed, we're talking about the environmental impact that it has on the environment. It's causing some problems with all that accumulated mercury, but even though we have these problems, problems. The factory has also been very good for the area. It's the economic backbone for this town, and the company was established way back in 1912. It's over 100 years old. And we've got the word backbone here, which is the bone in your body, but also we use this to talk about the foundation of something. It's the base of things. If you don't have that thing, nothing else can exist. So yes, indeed, this town owes its existence to this factory. If this factory weren't there, people would not have jobs. They couldn't send their kids to school. They couldn't save enough money to retire and have vacations and things like that. So indeed, it's necessary to have this company there.
Yeah, it's similar to TSMC. You could say that TSMC is an economic, you can pronounce it either way, backbone for Taiwan's economy. They bring in a lot of money. So I also wanted to mention we use backbone to talk about somebody who is a wimp or who doesn't have any courage. So if someone says, you have no backbone, they're saying that you don't have the courage to do the things that someone thinks you should do. You know, show some backbone. Stand up against that bully that's trying to tell you what to do. So here, it just means that solid support for the economy. And this company's been there since it was established in 1912. That was a long time ago. Solvay's investment into this area led to the town's development, of course, since most of the people who lived there were employed by the company. Of course, some of that money would go to building a hospital. They have a theater there that was funded by the company. And, of course, there's a lot of housing for employees. So all of this, or all of which, all these things symbolize the company's profound or deep influence on the town. Yeah, if it's tangible, notice we're saying tangible benefits, you can actually touch it. You know, so intangible would be something like a reputation of a company. That's an intangible asset, an intangible benefit. But tangible means it's something that can actually be touched.
Right, they actually occur. You've got a hospital there, a theater, and places for employees to live. And if you mention things and then you use this phrase, all of which, that means all of these things just mentioned, symbolize the company's profound influence on the town. So yes, indeed, the hospital, the theater, and the employee dormitories would not exist if it weren't for this company. So of course, they're probably all very grateful to these Belgians there, and to thank them, they probably have Belgian waffles for breakfast every day. Now, a clear proof of this close relationship is the local primary school named after Solvay's founder, Ernest Solvay. So yes, there must be a school there called Ernest Solvay Primary School. Of course, they'll use the Italian language to give it a name there. But yes, indeed, this is proof of that close relationship. The locals love the company, and the company loves the locals.
Another word for primary, guys, is elementary school. So if someone says, oh, you know, it's their primary school, usually that just can be interpreted to mean elementary school, which is grades 1 to 6, typically. I was watching a video, and even the post office was called Solvay. So, yeah, I'm sure they've contributed to a lot of the wealth there. They've certainly probably been taxed for the businesses there. So some of the tax money is used to build things that the community needs. So additionally, in addition to what we've just mentioned, from an environmental perspective, from that kind of viewpoint, the factory claims that its limestone-rich wastewater aids in preventing coastal erosion. Oh, that's their excuse, I see. Oh, man. That's pretty sad for them to come up with that kind of excuse. So limestone is broken down by that cooling sea water, and that leads to the soda ash that they use. So they're saying, hey, but our limestone-rich wastewater, the water they don't want and that they're trying to push into the sea, It's helping prevent coastal erosion. When something erodes, it disappears gradually over time. For example, I'm from a state called Arizona. We have the Grand Canyon. And we know over thousands and thousands of years, the water eroded all of that rock. So we've got a big canyon there. They're saying it's preventing the coast or the beach from eroding and going up further back. So they actually say, we're helping. They say it's a critical issue for seaside towns, this coastal erosion.
To erode is the verb and erosion is the noun,
yeah.
The act of wearing things away. And yes, indeed, this is indeed a problem for seaside towns. They keep losing their coastal features because there's water and the high tides and things like that. However, here in the next paragraph it says, however, the potential health implications of the factory's operations are a subject of ongoing debate. So we talk about health implications. An implication is basically some kind of conclusion that you can make because you've got some information or you've got some evidence. So we're talking about the results, or we're talking about the effect of the factory's operations. And we're just wondering, are there some health implications? Are there some possible complications for people's health because of the factory's operations? And people are debating this all the time. Of course, the company's probably saying, oh, no, our stuff isn't that bad for the environment. Oh, yes, it is. We admit that, but it's really not as bad as you guys are saying it is. And in fact, it's actually beneficial. So, of course, people are going back and forth about this all the time.
Yeah, you'll hear this word implications used a lot in the news as well. People will want to they'll want to talk about the actual results or consequences of something that's been proposed. For example, the government. You might hear them say, well, the implications of this are very negative. So maybe they want to build something and you don't want it. And so you want them to look ahead at some of the consequences. Those are the implications. So, this is a big debate. It's ongoing, meaning they're still talking about it. We're going to continue talking about this ourselves, guys, but first, as we always do, we're going to take a quick break, listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是11月24号 Unit 13 Toxic Sand Day 2的部分。今天的课程延续第一天内容，探讨意大利 Rosignano Solve 这个小镇的生态问题。从第二天课文我们可以了解到问题非常复杂，因为化工厂的存在不全然只有坏处，从最初创立开始就关系着小镇居民的生计，也是全球各地追求现代经济发展常常面临的难题，难以同时兼顾经济发展与生态平衡。好，我们一起来看这一课的学习重点。从第一段课文我们可以看得出来，对于居民来说，这家化工厂的存在不是只有坏处，当地的经济非常依赖这家化工厂。如果没有化工厂，城镇上面可能没有医院、戏院，居民也可能要面临严重的失业问题。化工厂和居民的关系非常密切，甚至于有小学就用集团创办人的名字命名。请同学呢先看一下第一个句子，在逗点之后这个分词构句讲到说这家工厂到底扮演什么角色 Serving as the economic backbone 意思就是一直都是这个城镇的经济支柱。好，再来请同学看到第二个句子逗点之后 all of which 这里的 all of which到底是什么意思呢？就是指前面这些具体的好处包括什么？医院、戏院，还有呢员工所住的这些东西，所有它都象征着这一家企业对于小镇有非常深刻的影响力，很重大的影响力。再来，请同学看到的是第四个句子。第四个句子在 claims that 之后，这个 that 这个名词子句里面有一个动词片语，就是 aids in， 意思就是有助于什么，对什么有帮助。这边所指的就是富含石灰岩的废水有助于防止海岸侵蚀。好，再来请同学看到的是第二段第一个句子 老师要说明的是 implication 这个名词。implication 它所指的呢，就是某件事它会发生的可能的后果或者影响。好，那在这里我们可以看得到这句话的意思呢，所指的是工厂营运可能对健康会造成潜在影响。那这个部分其实仍然是大家在持续争论的话题。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, it's time for us to continue with today's lesson. Again, we're talking about the possible health implications of the factory's operations. That is a subject of ongoing debate. Some people say it's good to have the factory there. Some people say it's bad. They should go away. And questions loom over whether heavy metals, such as mercury, lead, and arsenic in the waste, pose a significant threat to the health of locals and tourists alike. So we often hear this when we talk about environmental pollution. They do mention specifically the chemicals that are involved. In this particular case, we've got heavy metals. No, we're not talking about music by Metallica or Judas Priest or something.
No.
That's heavy metal music. But we're talking about heavy metals. They're elements that have a high atomic number. We've got mercury, we've got lead, and we've also got arsenic, which is also a chemical element. And, of course, it's oftentimes considered poisonous depending on how you use it. And all these pieces of metal, all these parts of metal, I guess, pose a significant threat to the health of locals and tourists alike. So both locals and tourists can be affected by the presence of these heavy metals.
Right. So if you're going to say that questions loom over, we often use this just to talk about a worrying situation, a situation that you're concerned about. If it's looming over, it's something that you'll have to address eventually because it's just around the corner. And they are concerned about the heavy metals. We know about mercury being bad. Lead, of course, used to be in our paint, and they have taken that out after they realized it was leading to a lot of deaths. And arsenic is a poison that is often used if you're reading murder mysteries or something like that. Actually, in the news a couple months ago, I read about a lady who was just feeding her husband little doses of arsenic every day.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it did kill him eventually. So arsenic is poisonous, as Tom said. And these heavy metals are in the wastewater, and they pose or are considered to be a significant threat to the health of the locals and the tourists who show up there. As a tourist, I wouldn't show up. But the poor locals, some of those people don't have enough money to move. You know, not everybody can pick up and go if something bad happens to the community. There was a 2017 study that showed an increase in mortality rates. You'll often see this word mortality when they're talking about the rate of death. So a mortality rate is how quickly people are dying. They'll often use comparisons of mortality rates before an incident and after an incident. And if you have a community that's been environmentally poisoned, you'll see higher mortality rates after that poisoning has taken place. So they did do a study, which is surprising because sometimes they try to hide this stuff, as you know. And they looked at the mortality rates from several major chronic diseases. A chronic disease would be heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, things that people live with for a while but ultimately can kill them. And it included something called Alzheimer's, where people start to forget who they are.
Yes, indeed. So that might affect people here because of the presence of those heavy metals. And while scientists speculate that these pollutants may contribute to the heightened disease mortality, the absence of a definitive study, one that's been delayed because of the local government's postponement of necessary funding, leaves this hypothesis unconfirmed, fueling locals' fears of living in a harmful environment. So yes, indeed, while scientists speculate, even when they speculate or when they sort of guess or they have this theory that these pollutants may be causing these problems. They may contribute to the increased amount of disease mortality. We do have this absence of a definitive study. So scientists think this is true, but we don't actually have the research to back it up. If something's definitive, that means it is something that is concluded to be true.
Yeah.
It's actually something that most people agree with. And yes, it's from the word define. Define means to say the meaning of something. So if something's definitive, that means it is saying something is true and most people believe it.
And very important, you might have a definitive period of your life that changed the direction of your life. So it's something that's very conclusive. They don't have enough people who want to fund the studies. So, we really don't know. If you say something is heightened, see that heightened disease mortality? To heighten something is to increase it, increase the degree of something or the intensity of something. There's been an absence of a definitive study because no one wants to fund it. Oh, odd. Odd that happens. You would think our government's trying to protect us, but no. So that's been delayed because of the local government that is really depending on Solvay for their livelihood, right?
Right.
So it's hard to fund a study that's going to hurt your own income. And we see that a lot with politicians. So that lack of funding leaves this hypothesis unconfirmed. A hypothesis is some theory that someone has that something is true or the case, but you have to test it. And if you don't have a study with facts and data, you can't prove your hypothesis is true. So it remains unconfirmed. And this is fueling or adding to the locals' fears of living in a harmful environment. I don't blame them.
Yeah, they're thinking, is it dangerous? But still, we need our jobs, we need our schools and things like that. So they're probably kind of confused about what to do. Moving now into the third paragraph, it says, the tale of Rossignano Solvay illuminates the complex interplay between industrial development and environmental conservation. So here we've got the word illuminate, which means to light something up. Sometimes, of course, cities are illuminated at night because lightning lights up the sky and the houses and the buildings are illuminated. They're lighted up, or they're lit up, you could also say that. And yes, this shines light on this complex interplay between industrial development and environmental conservation. In other words, it kind of shows us as an example that, yes, there is this relationship between companies wanting to produce products and at the same time they want to protect the environment. Sometimes they do a good job of that, but sometimes they don't. They dump waste into the local environment, and the governments don't do anything about it. So yes, indeed, it's kind of a little dance they do between the company and the environment.
Yeah, and they'll say, we've donated all this money to charities. We're such a good company. So you could just have to watch them closely. Thankfully, we have some good environmental attorneys or lawyers out there or campaigners, activists who try to keep people safe from some of the poisoning that we're experiencing from these big companies. Interplay is just another word for interaction, how they, the relationship that they have together. So what is conservation? Conservation is just saving and protecting something. Here we're talking about the environment. And if you're saving and protecting things, you're just keeping them so they'll be around a lot longer. The next sentence says it underlines the urgency for businesses to honor their social responsibilities and actively seek balance. They need the public to push them on this because they won't do it on their own, that's for sure, because they make less money. Here we're talking about to underline something. All that means is to emphasize something. That's another word you can use instead of to emphasize. That's a great word to add to your vocabulary.
Right, so this company, of course, can't just sweep this problem under the carpet. They've got to do something about it because eventually it will come back to shoot them in the foot. So they've got to find this balance between business and the ecology. And to protect communities living under the shadow of industry, it is imperative, it is vital, it is critical for firms to prioritize sustainable practices and technologies. So they're living under the shadow of industry. In other words, these communities depend on these factories, and they can't really say anything bad about them, or else they'll lose their jobs and they'll have to move someplace else, and they might end up homeless or something like that. So because of this, it's very important, it's critical, it's vital for the firms to prioritize sustainable practices. Sustainable does refer to the environment usually. To sustain means to maintain something in its original condition. So if you're talking about sustainable forests, for example, we cut the trees down and we grow them back and we don't lose any acres of forest. Everything balances out for years to come.
Or you'll hear restaurants advertise that they have sustainable fish practices. So you want to keep what you have. So you either have to grow more or encourage the production of more of something that you're needing to use. So the mission goes beyond just keeping it looking beautiful there. That's lovely, but that's not really the most important part. It's making sure that you're keeping your citizens and the people there healthy, and you're maintaining their well-being, because a lot of people call this place home.
We wish them the best of luck, and hopefully someday lots of people can go back to the beach there without worry. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today, but we'd still like to hear one more time from our Chinese teacher.
同样的这一段第二个句子，第二段的第二个句子有一个重要的动词片语，请同学画起来哦，就是 pose a significant threat to， 什么意思呢？好，同学要注意哦，这边要注意的就是词语搭配，对什么构成威胁，我们的动词是用 pose a significant threat to， 对谁、对什么造成威胁。再来呢，要请同学看到第三个句子。第三个句子，这里提到了2017年有一项研究，研究显示什么呢？ An increase in mortality rates from several major chronic diseases。那就是2017年的这项研究，我们可以看得出来，就是当地居民他们死亡率是有增加的。什么造成他们死亡？死亡的原因非常的多。我们看到从这个 from 后面呢，其实是死因。那这些最主要就是好几种重大的慢性病所造成的死亡。好，再来，请同学看到第四个句子。第四个句子其实也是相当长、相当复杂，有几个重点要注意。首先呢，就是在这个在 a definitive study 后面有个 one， 这里的 one 呢是什么意思呢？好，这边所指的当然也就是前面的这个研究了 a definitive study。这个研究呢一直在拖延，那最主要就是因为什么？经费不足。好，那这样子的没有这样子的研究 the absence of a definitive study， 没有这样子的研究会造成什么后果？我们请看 leaves this hypothesis unconfirmed。 好， leave 加受词， unconfirmed 是受词补语，在这里它当然是形容词，就是这样的假设是未经证实的。那再来，请同学特别注意的是后面的分词构句的 fueling locals fears， 所以让当地的居民更加的恐惧，增加他们的恐惧。 fuel 在这里是当作动词来用，而不是燃料。那当然就是加深或让什么现象呢比较恶化，让当地居民更加的害怕。好，再来，请同学看到第三段的第二个句子，这里的动词 it underlines， 在这里不是画底线的意思， it underlines the urgency for businesses。 好，那指的当然就是前面我们所说的这个小镇所发生的这件事，让我们看得出来企业有必要有一个急迫性，他们要做什么事情。这个 underlines 其实是强调出的意思，所以我们可以看得出来，就是企业有一件事情非常的重要。好，他们必须要赶快的对当地的居民负起社会责任。好，那以上呢，就是我们为这一课所做的中文讲解。谢谢同学。
That's all for today, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and please join us again next time for another edition of our program. My name is Tom.
And I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
See you later.